Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cup Editorial. Not sure what faces you're making, but hi.
I'm copying Denzel.
You're copying. Oh, is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Yes. For those listening in audio form, Mack made a face, and so did Denzel Washington,
Yes.
who is our guest on this episode. Hi, Denzel. How are you doing? No, he's not here.
Denzel, buddy.
We want to talk all about Othello. No,
Yeah.
but yeah, so this is Cup Editorial. Remember, we do these sometimes
Yep.
where we do these episodes where members of and
I
friends
feel like
of
you and
our
I have
team.
done quite a few of them. I feel like you and I have been the driving force because I feel the last one we did the longevity and like.
So, well, prior to our intro to 2025 one that Jill and I did, which was
Right.
basically just catching up on or reflecting on the previous theater year
Yes.
and looking ahead to this one. But yeah,
Yes.
prior to that, I think the longevity might have been the last one. And this is going to
so.
be a similar one to that, where we basically have just something theater-wise that we are thinking about that is occupying our thoughts. And we're just deciding to sit down in our trusty Zoom room and have a conversation about it. So I'm joined today by my co-artistic producer here at the Cup, Mackenzie Horner. Hello, Mack. How are you doing?
Hello, good sir. Hello, governor.
What is in your cup today?
Well, I am drinking some Diet 7-Up pomegranate fizzy drink. Pop,
Nice.
in
your
soda.
cup.
Am I the cup? Having a bit of a fizzy drink to get us through our fun conversation we're going to be having about this very dynamic topic.
Yes. Also, I have, not in my cup, I have my Canadian Tire Toronto Skyline.
Very nice.
That I'm just drinking water. I was going to have a hot beverage when it gets too warm for that. So I just
A hot toddy?
Yes, I just put some cold water in this mug.
Yes.
But I chose the Canadian Tire mug because some of what we're going to talk about today is relevant to Canadian theater, the ecosystem in which we operate.
Yeah.
But what are we talking about today? That is an interesting question.
Absolutely.
So broadly speaking, this is a topic for an episode that I'm still working on, what it even is that we're discussing. But it's roughly about celebrity casting. That is if maybe that's the title we decide on for this episode, who knows? But it is a discussion about celebrity casting in theater specifically. And why
is it worth it? Why do we do it? Pourquoi?
Yeah. Well, I think if you care about money, it's apparently very worth it. Because what got me thinking about this topic in particular was a lot of the news coverage about the production of Othello that is happening on Broadway at the Barrymore Theatre. Currently, at time of recording, not certain if it'll still be running when this episode airs, because it ends, I just checked, on June 8th, and we are recording this on June 2nd.
It ends early because it got no Tony Awards.
Yeah.
It got snubbed.
How much money it makes.
Yeah. It's like, we made our buck, we're out.
Yeah. So, yes, I believe the run will be terminated by the time we release this episode, but it is currently still going while we're discussing it. It stars Denzel Washington as Othello and Jake Gyllenhaal as Iago, so two massive mega celebrities, and they are charging upwards
Oscar winner, Oscar nominee.
That's true. So,
anyway, point being, celebrity casting.
Othello is currently running at time of recording, and it has made all of the money. I sent you, Mack, an article in Theater Mania that was published on March 11th of this year, 2025, and they had already become the highest grossing play in Broadway history before they even opened. They were in previews at the time, and they are charging upwards of $300 per ticket. With some
one ticket goes for there's the highest price tickets can go for as close to just under $1,000. One ticket is $921,
which is insane. Like that's, I don't know how else to put it. Like there is just no play I would want to see so much that I would spend that much money. And I'm somebody who loves seeing plays and has probably spent more money than I should seeing them over the years. So, but I always personally, I try to seek out discounts, but if you want to see something very badly, I can understand the pull to spend more than you otherwise would have, but these numbers are quite extravagant.
Yeah.
And that
in 1 week, in the article you mentioned here that it in 1 week basically it grossed $2,818,297 for 8 performances.
And this is still
it's the second week of preview too. It's not even the opening. This was before it opened.
And this is still from the article of March 11th is what you're reading from. So if we just think about how much it had grossed by that point, imagine, do we have numbers on what it has grossed to date? I think I had a thing open here. Okay, yes. So this is from Broadway World. Othello's grosses at time of recording have reached $39,000,000, 349,378. So at least from whenever they last counted this.
And that is it. And that's part of and that all goes toward what this other report from Playbill that just came out last week, which says that the 2020, 24, 2025 Broadway season is the highest grossing season in Broadway history.
Wow.
Yeah, so it earned a total gross of $1.89 billion.
Yeah, so Broadway's making a lot of money. People, there is a common wisdom that theaters haven't bounced back from the pandemic, that everything is in shambles. And while that is certainly true and definitely true in a lot of contexts,
yeah, the article that I was just quoting. So the last record number year was the 2018-2019 year, and that's when it earned $1.83 billion in its season. So
right.
So yes, COVID did take a hit on Broadway, but now it's beat that record by quite a few more $1 billion.
Yeah, Broadway seems to be doing okay, and there's probably a lot of very complicated reasons about why, and I'm certainly no accountant. But what I
You're not a Leo Bloom?
I can't say that I am, no. Although I would like to be a producer. No.
I wanna be a producer.
No, I do not.
Sleep with all the little ladies, Ryan.
I made that mistake once. No.
So the denture marks to prove it.
Oh, this has gone off the rails very quickly. Yes. So, editorial. Yes. Why we bring up all this Othello and finance and whatnot is I feel like this is an interesting beginning of a conversation we could have about celebrity casting as a larger, interesting topic. And we are Canadian, and we are in Toronto, and we have interesting discussions about what celebrity casting means in our context, in theater in particular, and who counts as a celebrity, and what it means to be a celebrity when theater gets celebrities. We've had versions of this conversation on episodes about Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which had the two hobbits, Merry and Pippin, and what does it mean to cast these particular famous figures to draw crowds. We've maybe perhaps more recently discussed it in relation to playing Shylock, which got Saul Rubinek to be a big celebrity draw for that show, even though he's like a character actor that you likely recognize, but maybe aren't even sure what his name is.
Exactly. He's always that guy where it's I've seen him in things, but could I tell you what? No.
But it's kind of interesting to think about the Canadian theater context of who is a celebrity, who can draw big crowds. I even think back to a lot of the National Theater stuff we've covered way back when about like
we still do cover it on occasion. We did Crucible a while ago.
Even that's been like almost a year, I think. But well, either way, it's a lot of the National Theater stuff that we cover, and even just who counts as a celebrity in that context. Say someone like Lucia Massimati, for example, who was in that production of Amadeus that we reviewed many years ago now.
Fisticuffs over it.
And like he's extraordinary in that production, but he is both framed as a celebrity, but also kind of not, because I think the thing that he gets his celebrity cachet for, at least at the time of that play and that recording, is that he had a small bit part on Game of Thrones, and people recognize him from that, which is similar, I guess, to the Merry and Pippin type example.
Yes.
But as somebody who headlines this show that he's extraordinary in, I think theater operates with celebrity very differently than film, but also has a bit of a symbiotic relationship with film in this way. And this is something that I think is interesting to explore. And I don't know if I have any thoughts or conclusions about it, but maybe through talking about this kind of thing we can, because the people who count as celebrities in theater, or celebrities who come to theater, are for the most part film stars, maybe TV stars, but they're people who exist in a mass media ecosystem. They become celebrities because they are in a thing that people can watch all over. Theater being very localized, to become a celebrity from theater means that you are only exposing yourself to the audience who can see you in the there and now, unless you're like a touring theater celebrity like Eugene O'Neill's father back in the day. But that kind of thing doesn't really exist. Now, if you want to expose you and your artistry to a large audience, then you do it in mass media. And then once you've been successful at that, you can kind of slum it in the theater for a bit and get people to come see you on stage because they recognize you from these other things. But then once, like, I think of someone like Lucia Massimati, who like is in Game of Thrones, but he's like not one of the big characters in that. But
he's
now,
like in 1-2 seasons. He shows up season 2 and briefly in season 3.
Yeah,
there's like maybe 4 episodes he actually appears in the entire run of the show.
But now, when I see him show up in something like Conclave, for example, I don't think, oh yeah, pirate guy from Game of Thrones. I think,
oh, that's right, he was. That's the same guy. Oh my god, I didn't even put the two of them together.
But when I see him in that, I think, hey, Salieri, because through this huge theater role that he's played, in my mind, perhaps my skewed perception of things because I'm just a theater nerd in this way, but I think the big roles in theater is what makes someone a theater celebrity in my mind, and then it's cool for me when I see them going back to film in that way, which is interesting. And I don't know if that's like a usual experience for people, but a lot of people did see that production of Amadeus both live in the UK and then when they started streaming it especially during the pandemic, when they first started the National Theatre at Home streaming service. And I wonder how many people think of celebrity as something that, if not originating in the theater, at least blossoming in theater. And to then tie this back to something like this Othello production, these two guys are just so famous. I don't think anyone's going to be like, oh yeah, next Denzel Washington movie, right, he was Othello. But it's interesting to kind of think about someone like Tom McCannis, for example, who, I don't know about you, but I think of that guy as a celebrity. He is a rock star.
He is. Well, yeah.
And like he is for those, if people are listening to this who are more interested in Broadway and don't know our Canadian, specifically Southern Ontario theater context, Tom McCannis is an actor who's been in many Stratford productions at the Stratford Theatre Festival.
Down in Toronto.
Yeah, he's done stuff in Toronto too, but he's like mostly known for being a Stratford guy.
It's like Lucy Peacock.
Yeah, and the two of them are currently in the productions of Macbeth and The Witch's Tale that are currently happening at Stratford, which I saw just a few days ago, both of them. And so when I saw the movie Room, for example, with Brie Larson, and it based on a Canadian novel, and I think was probably partly a Canadian production, but, Oscar-winning movie. When I saw Tom McCannis show up in that, I gasped because I'm like, hey.
I forgot he was in that.
Yeah. And he's the best character in it. But yeah, like I feel like there's something to discuss here about can theater people be celebrities? What does it mean when, quote unquote, actual celebrities from film and TV come into theater? And what should we learn from the success of something like Othello vis-a-vis this relationship between celebrity culture, theater, mass media, localized theater media? And maybe there's a conversation we hadn't here about these exorbitant ticket prices, which I also want to bring up a bit. But
I have the history of the ticket prices, so I definitely can give you a Broadway history rundown on that.
And this is why I wanted to talk to you about this, because I knew you'd probably have a lot of very interesting Broadway knowledge and nuggets and facts about it. So I threw a lot at you there in my very preamble of what this episode is or could be about. What do you gravitate towards? Where would you like to start?
Oh my goodness, wow. I guess we could start with your first question of, can a stage actor be a celebrity? Because I think, it's funny. It's a bit of a roundabout, circular, snake eating itself type thing, where producers will give a lot of credit to actors who start on Broadway or on the stage and then transition to film. And then in return, the theater producers then symbiotically take them back and use them as a producing tool to get them to get people to come in and see their show. And then to people like Denzel, who start in the world of theater, go, oh, I want to get back to the stage because that's where I had a lot of fun doing the same show 8 times a week, getting to really run the text, be a actor's actor, as you know, sometimes people will say. So I do think stage actors can be celebrities. It's the question of more about, we need to give them the same credit and market them in such a way that they can run off. I think the best example is Stratford. Stratford knows how to market their names. They have and they're starting to grow a new catalog now that their current catalog is kind of aging into a different era of their lives. We have people like Lucy Peacock, Shauna McKenna, Tom McCannis, Tom Rooney, Geraint Wayne
All of them
Davies.
who are currently acting in this current season. Everyone you just listed.
Well, it's good. They're all still acting. But, once again, you and I talked off mic about this. Casting Tom McCannis and Tom Rooney as your Mackers and Macduff, who are both more senior members of the company, has a very different energy about it than if you were to cast younger actors. And, Lucy is she's playing Lady M in one show, and then she's playing Time in Winter's Tale. But she isn't doing all the lead roles like she used to be. Like, she's gracefully, same thing, Shauna McKenna. Both of them have kind of gracefully moved themselves into the grand dame roles of the theater, where they're taking on roles like Cymbeline, because, why not? Lucy Peacock can play Cymbeline,
Contrary to being in the title, it's not actually that big a role.
Right? Exactly. But they marketed it. That she was top of the poster.
Because they know that she is their star.
And that's exactly it. Stratford does a very good job of, they know if they put Lucy Peacock, Tom McCannis, Tom Rooney, Geraint Wayne Davies, Shauna McKenna, Yana McIntosh, these well-known faces of the festival who have been there now 20, 30 seasons, they have cultivated them into being stars of the Stratford Festival. And they have done a superb job compared to, say, Toronto, where Lisa Horner, for example, she has done, she holds the record for Mirvish of actually performing the most in all their theater houses. She's the only one who's gone through all 4 theater houses of Princess of Wales, Royal Alex, CAA, and the Ed Mirvish. She's performed in all 4 of them. But, she was in Come From Away, and obviously that's an ensemble piece. You don't want to, you probably wouldn't want to market it as the Lisa Horner show.
That would kind of defeat the purpose, yes.
But you could do a Come From Away featuring Toronto's own Lisa Horner, right? And because she's a recognizable face. Like, people know her, especially because of her IKEA commercial, where she's the start the car. Like, she even has that in her program. So that commercial's 20 years old.
It's fun. It's a memorable IKEA commercial.
It's a very memorable IKEA commercial.
And it's also funny, just sorry to not to interrupt you, but just it's funny that this is the context of Canadian celebrity, that an IKEA commercial is the thing that someone is best known for, despite, as you said, having such a robust career on stage, because that's how mass media operates differently than theater. Yeah. Sorry to continue your thought.
But even currently in Lion King, for example, there's a lot of great cast members in this show, but the one that actually stands out to me is actually someone who's in the ensemble, and that is Martina Lutz, and she's an understudy Nala, but I know her more because she used to sing the national anthem at the hockey games. So, but she's done a whole bunch of other shows. Like, she's done Wyatt Earp, she's done Top Line, Most Dangerous Game, SkyMed for Paramount Plus in CBC, Fubar with Arnold Schwarzenegger. She just started in Verona with that Romeo and Juliet thing. So, but she's an ensemble member. But they're not marketing that, like, hey, come see this person, even though Stratford goes, hey, come see Robert Lepage, who's a terrific director in Canada, but it's Tom McCannis and Lucy Peacock doing Mackers, and they're the big name on the poster, and everybody goes, okay, Lucy Peacock and Tom McCannis are in it, I gotta see it. So I think Stratford is, Toronto's got to pick up more of the Stratford model of highlight the performer, but you got to do it in the way of what you and Phil talked about in your interview, where it's like, on the poster, don't just put the face of the celebrity, give me something that actually tells me a bit of the story of what's going on here. 8.5 minutes that you and I reviewed starred, Canadian icon Megan Follows as the mother of that show.
She was on the poster.
She's on the poster, but the poster was not dynamic in a way that really kind of captured what the story was about. But at least they marketed it going, hey, come see this person that from Rain, from Anne of Green Gables, and now she's going to be playing Lisa Montgomery in a whole new miniseries.
Full circle.
It's going full circle, right? But it's like Stratford actually knows how to market their stars to push the ticket. Compared to because the only real director who I can name is Robert Lepage for Mackers. You have Chris Abraham directing As You Like It, but people won't really know his production. But people who see much of you go, I like that production. Yeah. But they're not going to connect it to Chris Abraham doing From This to This because he's, you know what I'm saying? Stratford has a really good way of using cast as their celebrity push to market a season compared to Toronto, where Mirvish does not know, unless it's a really big American coming to, right now they're advertising their off Mirvish season and it's going to be what's her name from Downton Abbey. Elizabeth McGovern's coming in to play what's her name, this Bergman, in like one of her big Lifetime interviews where Elizabeth McGovern wrote the play, and she's starring in it. It's like a two-hander piece, but it's like her poster is right there on the Off Mirvish. Like nobody else is on there. It's just her saying Off Mirvish, and it's her picture because it's like, oh, I know her from Downton Abbey. But Mirvish isn't advertising Lisa Horner or anybody else that comes through. What was that one you and I saw with Tom McCann and Shauna McKenna?
Things I know to be true.
Yes. Once again, Mirvish should have been pumping it out there like, hey, come see Tom McCann and Shauna McKenna stars of Stratford in this new play that stars them. Like, they didn't do that. And it's like, we do have celebrity, and stage actors can be celebrities if you give them the right marketing tool behind it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I threw a lot back at you. So.
Yeah, no, and there was a lot of individual parts of it that I wanted to respond to now. I'm trying to remember what all of them were. Remind me that we'll come back to Chris Abraham because I have thoughts about director as celebrity too. So, but to kind of just go off the main thing, I think the big takeaway that I have from everything you just sort of spewed there, which was all very interesting, is that, and this kind of goes back to my thing about someone like Lucian Massimati, for example, is that there's two different ways of thinking about celebrity, maybe. Well, probably more, but there's two that I think are coming into focus in this conversation. There is the megastar, someone like Denzel Washington, who they've been doing movies forever. You know them. You love Training Day. You will come see Othello because he is in it. Everyone will.
He started in theater, though. People forget Denzel started doing theater, too.
But he wasn't a mega celebrity until he was in film. Theater did not make him a mega celebrity. Maybe people who saw him in plays would then go see a movie because, oh yeah, I liked him in that play. But his record-breaking grosses in Othello has nothing to do with the fact that he used to be a stage actor. So that's like the first thing, mega celebrity. But then I think a different way of thinking about celebrity here that you sort of made me realize, and why I bring up someone like Lucian Massimati or someone like Saul Rubinek, or who did you say was the actor in The Lion King who was in all of those movies, who you think is the biggest celebrity draw on that show?
Well, I mean, most recognizable. I wouldn't say biggest celebrity draw, but someone who, like, immediately I recognized is Martina Ritz Lutz. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing her last name.
Well, and just the fact that you're not even certain about the pronunciation, I think says something about this isn't a star. This is someone who's had a big career, and those are different things. And why I think it's important to draw this distinction is because if you, individual spectator, are familiar with that person from other things in their career, you can have, I don't want to say like a warped sense of how famous they are, but a personalized sense of this is a celebrity to me, not necessarily. I mean,
like, you look at the actress who plays Nala in the Lion King production, Camilla Nganya Seligan. Once again, apologies if we're not pronouncing her name correctly, but she's got Broadway credits. She did Book of Mormon, Paradise Square. She's done national tours of Lion King and Book of Mormon. She's done Stratford. She's done Obsidian Theater. She's done Ross Petty Panto. She's part of the Oprah Channel, NBC. Like, she is a big name, Broadway level caliber performer. But the face I recognized is someone who's in the ensemble.
Well, and that's the thing. But there are other people for whom that Nala performer is the person they recognize.
Absolutely.
So I think what's kind of, and like Lion King is sort of an interesting case because they're underneath so much heavy costumes and the puppetry, and Julie Taymor is the star of that show more than anyone, at least like aesthetically. And this kind of brings us back to celebrity directors in a way. But I think that's an interesting case where it's not that, oh, we love Julie Taymor, big star. People love Julie Taymor because of what she did with Lion King in a lot of cases, and that lightning didn't.
Which ties into your whole director celebrity thing.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, a director largely becomes a celebrity by making these sort of big productions, usually with a bold aesthetic choice that differentiates them from just the usually
Coriolanus.
Yeah, the work of a director is usually unseen and not easily understood by the audience. What exactly does the director do? Well, they work with the actors, okay, but how do I know if the choice I like is the actor's choice or the director's choice? When you have a big, bold aesthetic vision like Julie Taymor's Lion King or Robert Lepage's Coriolanus, you get a sense of, okay, I see the director at work and I like this and it's different from things I've seen, therefore I like this director. Chris Abraham, I think, is an interesting example because while he has done shows at Stratford in previous seasons, Much Ado About Nothing most recently and Taming of the Shrew before that, he kind of has an interesting type of celebrity status to Toronto theater enthusiasts because he runs Crow's Theater. And he has really turned that company into a juggernaut on our stages.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as a result, when he does something at Stratford, sure, you might remember other stuff at Stratford he's done, but the bigger excitement is like, oh yeah, I loved Uncle Vanya. I love all of the shows, even ones he doesn't direct at Crows, as the AD of the company.
Great comment.
Yeah, which he did direct.
Which is now going to Stratford.
Yes. But I think like he's an interesting type of both director and artistic director in that, because it's almost beyond the individual productions that he's directed, is just the big institutional framing of like, he is the guy who's able to make theater magic happen in Toronto and have like these high grossing productions and big critically acclaimed productions. Even if you don't love everything he's done, I liked Whites a lot more than most people did, but a lot of people have kind of looked at that as like he's losing some of his magic there. But I thought Whites was great, but that's a controversial opinion. But yeah, I think Chris going to Stratford gets people from Toronto excited to, oh, let's see what he's doing over there. And I think there has been a lot of talk about his kind of unique creative vision and his approach to As You Like It here, that it is getting, like I was talking to, because I was at opening week and I was talking to a lot of other people, some critics, some just Toronto theater enthusiasts who really viewed the production of As You Like It through what we could call an auteurist lens of, yeah, classic Chris Abraham doing this thing. I don't know if it works. Maybe it works. I liked it. I didn't like it, but it's always kind of coming back to him. People aren't talking about Sarah Farb, the lead who plays Rosalind. Even if you enjoyed her performance, she doesn't have this kind of authorial stamp over it, despite also having some celebrity cachet as someone who's done, at least within a local theater context, she's done Stratford before. This is a bit of a homecoming for her to Stratford, but she's done all kinds of things in Toronto that people have been excited about. She was in the Timbit musical, for Pete's sake. But
great show. We got to review that sometime.
300 episodes, maybe. But
episode 300, there we go.
Yeah. But I guess where I'm going with this, to go back to the point I was saying about how there is the mega celebrity versus the personal celebrity. And that's, I think, a useful way of thinking about theater celebrities. And I think when we look at something like, let's go back to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, because that, I think, is a useful prism for thinking about this. Because those are two actors who have been in one of what is arguably one of the most successful film franchises of all time.
Absolutely.
And they had very prominent roles in it. Quick, Mack. Name one other movie either of those guys is in.
Well, I mean, Dominic Monaghan did Lost.
Okay, fine. Wait, he did Lost? Really? Was he a main character in that?
Yeah.
Okay. That I didn't know. I've never watched Lost.
Yeah. And he was in front of Billy Boyd, on the other hand, like, he's done a lot more indie, like, British films. I can't tell you the name, but he's appeared in them.
Yeah.
But the fact that now they have their own cooking show, following their success of a podcast, a touring stage production, and then on Food Network's being like, let's get them, they eat around the world cooking show.
But I think where I'm kind of going with this is, well, a couple things. One, I didn't realize he was in Lost. I guess that maybe has more celebrity cachet than just like the one Lord of the Rings role that I know them from. So when I go into a production like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, that's my personal frame of reference for why are these guys famous. But I think if we're just looking at it in the context of they're famous because they're hobbits, and that's kind of like, that was the discourse. Like, they didn't get like two random actors who were both in Lord of the Rings, even bigger stars. It wasn't like, I don't know, Ian McKellen and Elijah Wood, for example, both of whom are bigger stars. But it was the fact that, it's the two side hobbits are playing the two side characters from Hamlet. Isn't that funny? But I think what makes them celebrities is less of their own celebrity status as these well-loved characters, but it's Peter Jackson's celebrity status is what is being invoked here. It's the guys you've seen from that really great movie series you love. Do you disagree with that as an assessment of their fame?
For them, I would put them up as mega celebrities.
You think so?
Yes. Because they're part of one of the most profitable franchises in like film history. Anybody part of that franchise, anybody part of that series, that core fellowship, I would say, does have that clout about them. Now, compared to the Hobbit franchise, where, could you name any of the other, like James Nesbitt, who was one of the dwarves? I recognize him, but like I couldn't really tell you much more films he's been in.
Yeah,
but when I see him pop up in British indie, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, like I have the same experience with what was the name of the main dwarf guy who was in Hannibal, but I recognize him from Hannibal, and then I remember that he was also in The Hobbit.
Richard Armitage.
Yes, that's his name. So, but
he was terrific in Hannibal, but he's done a whole bunch. Actually, they're saying he actually may be the new James Bond.
That would make sense. I know he's done stage work. He played John Proctor in a National Theatre production of The Crucible, not the one that we reviewed, but
no.
But yeah, like
which he had though.
Anyway, we're getting derailed here. But I guess, okay, taking it back just to this idea of the personal celebrity versus the mega celebrity, I think what you're describing with Stratford, which is interesting here, is none of the people who you named as the big Stratford stars are people I would refer to as a mega celebrity.
Oh, no, I agree. Once again, but I think that comes down to marketing within Canadian theater, where when Lucy Peacock goes, like I had forgotten Lucy had done a production of King Lear. I forget who did it. Where was it Crows or Soul Pepper? Or no, sorry, was it Shauna who did Lear?
I'm not sure, actually. I know
that's
Shauna
the point. One of them did it, where they came to Toronto for a sit-down production with I think it was Soul Pepper or Tarragon, one of the two anyway. Brought either Lucy or Shauna down to Toronto to play Lear. Now, I can't remember which one of them did it, and that's mainly because the production. Now, I heard good things at the time when it came out, because it was around when we were ending our time at York.
Oh, okay. So this was probably like right when I left for Ottawa, which is why I wasn't privy to this going on. Okay. It's like, how do I not remember this?
But the point is that in Canadian theater, we do not do a good job of marketing people. Like the fact that our friend of the Cup, Mariana, who was just on Broadway understudying, what's his name?
Andrew Scott.
Andrew Scott, thank you. Andrew Scott in Vanya. So she got a huge write-up in time because she had done like an ensemble Broadway role previously. And then she had gone to do this role where she played every character in Vanya, like understudying Andrew Scott. Like, it's a huge promotion of her career. But like, she is the understudy who did a terrific job. But like the fact that the New York Times, or one of the big publications in New York, took the time to interview her and, and actually speak with her and promote her is like, like, why aren't we doing that? Like Emilio, another friend of the Cup, Emilio. He has done several shows at Stratford. He had that great pandemic show that he did that we talked about, Love Building, or
February, A Love Story.
Thank you, that one. But it's like, he is an up-and-coming member of the Stratford Festival who continues to prove himself there. He did that February Love Story production during the pandemic, which got great reviews. And then he was in a Dora-nominated production of Two Noble Kingsmen as well. And it's like, why isn't like Toronto Star, like we obviously featured him as a panelist, we've interviewed him, but it's like our system should be marketing these people, going, hey, build them up, grow them, because what's his name, Josh Gad, he did a lot of off-Broadway, he did a lot of smaller Broadway production, and then he broke out in Book of Mormon, but people were able to track him and go, hey, he did this and this, and he finally did have his big break in Book of Mormon. But our system is not built that way, and we fail our Canadian actors that way.
Here, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but I think there's important observations that I would like to interject to this.
Go, please.
Starting just with Josh Gad and working our way back.
Yeah.
Yes, he had his big Broadway breakthrough with Book of Mormon, but average person on the street did not know who he was until Frozen. Until Frozen, a mass media property, is what I'm saying. That made him an actual celebrity. Prior to that, he was a theater celebrity, and theater celebrity is, on its own terms, a form of personal celebrity, as I'm defining it. But
still marketable.
Still marketable to people.
You put Audra McDonald in Gypsy.
Audra McDonald has had a robust film career too, and that I think draws a lot of people to see her on stage, even though she obviously is a Broadway star.
Because of Gypsy.
Yeah, but yeah, like I think I feel like theater is the realm where people become personal celebrities, and film can be too if you see someone like a small role. But I think theater has a nigh impossible time building mega celebrities, as I'm understanding it here, because theater is just an insular culture of the people who go to theater and the people.
It's one of those things where, like, we talked about this when we did, I think it was our musical editorial or roundtable. Anyway, we talked about how with a Broadway cast album, that goes international. Josh Gad was known around the world for his Elder Cunningham performance on the cast album of Book of Mormon. And then people obviously watched the clips of him and you know, that grew. A play, it's hard to, bring that out to the world unless you actually sit down in the theater, or unless there's a pro shot, and watch. And as you say, I think that is why theater does have a problem with producing megastars, is because it is such a tangible, and that's why people come to see megastars on stage. Like, there's a reason why people are paying $900 a ticket to see Denzel,
to be in the room with Denzel Washington. That's what they want to be in
the room where it happens.
Well, and I think to bring up the cast album again, couple things about that. One, that is another mass mediated product, and that is what makes the celebrity. Like, the theater is not a mass media. It is you must come to the theater. Theater doesn't come to you.
Yes.
I will also say a Broadway cast album sure gets a wider circulation, but two things about that. One, it's mostly listened to by people who are already theater fans.
Absolutely. Once again, Josh Gad grew his theater cred through the album, but we were doing a play. Like, Mariana will not be well known until, or at least won't be known nationally.
Well, but what
people know her in New York.
Yeah.
But it won't be like somebody in California will know her.
Yeah. A kid in Kansas, for example, can listen to the cast album of Book of Mormon and be like, wow, I love theater. I dream of Broadway. And now I'm going to memorize everyone on this cast and their whole CVs because I'm a theater nerd, even though I would not have been exposed to these stars if not for this album, because I can't get myself to New York.
Yes.
But most people outside of that nerddom of theater fans aren't listening to the cast album of the Book of Mormon.
For sure.
If they are, it's because they saw it and they liked the songs and want to re-listen to them. But then they might not be theater nerds, but they're at least theater enthused enough that they went to it. But I will still say, within that context, yes, the album had a mediating step to give Josh Gad more celebrity, more theater celebrity, more clout as a theater person. It was Frozen that made people excited. And now when he does Broadway, people are excited to see Olaf on stage.
Yeah, it gets back to the whole, as I started with that cyclical snake eating itself cycle, where you start in theater, you grow your craft, and then you move on to do other, like even Meryl Streep. She started off at Juilliard.
Yeah,
with
most big actors got their start in theater, at least back in the day. Now it's changed a bit. But...
Yes, it's changed a bit now. But like, Meryl Streep started at Juilliard, did Shakespeare in the Park. There's a lot of famous clips of young Meryl Streep doing Taming of the Shrew at the time, and then she went on and did film. And now she hasn't come back to Broadway yet, but I guarantee at some point she probably will, because she has said she does love doing theater. So either in LA or New York.
And she was already a big star when she did Mother Courage in the Park.
Yes.
Back that was like in like the early 2000s, but she was already a big movie star.
2 Oscars by that point.
Yeah. So, but like there is, and again, I use the term slumming it kind of to describe. And I think it's the wrong language for it, but I think it's a way.
I wouldn't call it slumming it.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it either, but like I think it's this. I don't want to derail us into the ticket prices just yet, because I think there's more to explore with the celebrity here before we get into that. But when a big star comes to theater, the mega celebrity who you've seen in the movies, and that is who, like somebody who has had a lead role in a big movie, whether they've won Oscars or not, that is the mega celebrity, and they come to theater and it draws in big crowds. I want to kind of compare that to the personal celebrity, because all of the people who we think are big stars because we love them in Stratford are not big stars to anybody who does not go to Stratford. When Tom McCann shows,
Lucy Peacock came to Barrie, I was excited, and then I got because she to do a 2-hander play with Talk is Free Theater. Now I got lucky enough that our caddy asked me to come be part of that production. I got to sit backstage with her and talk with her and have a really great time doing it. That being said, my dad knew about Lucy Peacock because I had told him who she was. And he's like your Joe Will theater guy. Like, he is not, Mr. Know-It-all of theater. So it's like, he did not really know who she was. and that's going outside Star. Once again, the Canadian theater industry, we have to do a better job of cross-pollinating this. And Arcady was good, where he said, the Star of Stratford, Lucy Peacock. He marketed it that way. And once again, Georgie Johnson was her co-star, who is a terrific, like he's done, I'm pretty sure he did Slings and Arrows, but he's done a whole bunch of CBC.
Mass media is what you're saying. That's,
but once again, he wasn't marketed.
Okay.
It was Lucy on the poster. It wasn't Geordie Johnson who was on the poster. It was Lucy Peacock, Star of Stratford, coming to Barrie to do You Turn Somersaults, a two-hander Russian play that nobody had ever heard of in their life. But as you said, the Joe Blow person would not know Lucy Peacock the same way we would know Lucy Peacock.
And like when Tom McCamus shows up in the movie Room, I gasp because I'm like, hey, he's a big Stratford star. I love him in all of the Stratford plays I've seen. Yeah. But Brie Larson is the star of that movie. Yes. And when Tom McCamus shows up for a not insubstantial role, but most people, unless they go to Stratford, don't know who that is and don't have that same reaction.
I don't know if Tom even has that in his bio at Stratford. Okay, no, he does mention Room. He does.
Yeah, and it was he had a big part in it. And so many of these like theater actors do theater because they love it, but make most of their living by doing small parts on Murdoch Mystery or whatever, or being in IKEA commercials because that pays the bills better than theater does. And it also makes it difficult to stay in theater when you can make so much more money doing what you love in film and TV. If you're able to break into film and TV, there is an element of, again, not slumming it, but compromising to do theater. You won't make as much money, but you love theater, so you will do it.
A lot of actors talk about, Denzel talks about, I want to go back and play Othello because it's a role I've always wanted to play. And now's my time because I'm at the age where I can do it.
And he could have done a movie of Othello. He did a movie of Macbeth.
Yeah, that's really, I could have even seen Apple TV being like, hey, let's get you to come back and do another Oscar-nominated movie for us.
If he just wanted to play Othello, the more obvious route would have just been, call up one of the Coen brothers, whichever one it was that did it, and be like, hey, you want to do it again, but this time Othello. And they probably could have gotten that movie financed. He goes back to the theater, which would usually come with the understanding that you are going to make less doing this than you would making a movie.
Except not in this case.
Not in this case.
Pricing.
Which is interesting. Like, I think... Fine, we can start talking a bit about the ticket prices and we'll see where this leads us. Or were there other points you wanted to say about Celebrity?
No, because it all ties back into with Celebrity and the Megastar. Because I think, so, once again, I think the issue then becomes, let me rewind a bit on this. So, small history lesson of where this
regale us
came to be. Because up until 2001, like, stars would come and do Broadway, but it wasn't stupidly priced. The reason we have stupid prices is, and I love this man dearly, you know I do, Ryan, but it's the wonderful Mel Brooks, because he did a little known musical called The Producers, starring Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick. And because they were Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick, Mel Brooks being the keen-eyed producer that he is,
he always wanted to be one.
And he took it full on and jacked the prices on the tickets and opened the floodgate for that type of pricing to happen. And it broke records. Like, it was the largest single-day box office ticket sale in theater history, taking in more than $3 million in just one day.
Wow.
And the funny thing that happened is, once Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick left, and you had other actors like Brad Oscar, who played Franz at the time, came on and took on the role of Max. And I believe that Martin Short came and did Leo for a bit too. But basically, they left. The stars left. Nathan Lane won his Tony. Matthew Broderick got his accolades. Their contracts ended, away they went. And it affected the success of the production majorly. Like major drop in ticket sales.
Because people were coming to see the stars, not...
Bingo.
And like, it's also an interesting example because that is based on a beloved film. The film
Yes.
is one of the stars of the show.
Absolutely.
Mel Brooks is one of the stars of the show, even if he
Yes.
never appears on stage. Did he ever
No.
do a cameo in it where he played?
His audio is cameo in,
that's funny.
in Springtime for Hitler.
Yeah, which I know, like when they finally did the movie, he has that like one of the parts, like "Don't be stupid, be a smarty, come on, join the Nazi party." But
his audio is used, but it's not him.
Okay.
But he does appear in the end credits of that movie. Anyway, point being is then they brought them back for a limited run from December 2003 to April 2004. And once again, that broke ticket sales by $3.5 million for a single day of ticket sales. So ultimately, the show closed, not because it wasn't successful, but because they had built so much into the stars of the show, and they had priced themselves in such a way that now to drop the prices after they leave doesn't look good. Ergo, the show couldn't sustain itself. Another prime example is Book of Mormon, another great, fun musical show. Now, that show, when it opened, was charging $477 for the best seats. And in the first year, it was consistently one of the top 5 best-selling shows on Broadway. I wonder why. It set a 22 new weekly records for the Eugene O'Neill Theater. And then for the week of Thanksgiving 2011, the average paid admission was over $170. And then they were actually able to recoup, the financial backers were able to recoup their investment of $11.4 million in just 9 months, one of the fastest turnarounds for any Broadway show. Now that's because, not because they were selling tickets at a reasonable rate, it's because they jacked the price to such an extent that, they were able to recoup the money. And at the time, Andrew Reynolds and Josh Gad were not big names.
No, they became big names from that in the theater world, and then both of them became bigger names when they did
but it
big
wasn't
movies
like
and
Nathan
TV.
and Matthew Broderick, who were Ferris Bueller and Timon from The Lion King.
And Simba from The Lion King.
Simba from The Lion King and The Birdcage.
Well, but Ferris Bueller, of course, is the where he
Ferris
became
Bueller.
famous.
Like they were big names. Nathan Lane was a Tony-winning actor. He nominated for Guys and Dolls, won for Funny Thing, had appeared in Lion King, The Birdcage. Like, he was a face. So was Matthew Broderick. You were paying to see them. You were paying to be basically Jake Gyllenhaal, Denzel Washington. So point being is, Mel Brooks opened the floodgate. And that has now set the precedent that anytime some celebrity comes to Broadway, they're now going to get paid a bigger salary. Like Sadie Sink, for example, Stranger Things star Sadie Sink, is starring in that new John Proctor is the Villain play. Now, once again, I hear nothing but great things about the play. Everybody who works with her says she's a delight to work with. She's a Broadway theater kid. Started off in Annie on Broadway. Like, has always loved theater. Has wanted to get back to theater. Now, I don't know what her salary is, but I can guarantee you, compared to her other cast members, who are just as good, because Sadie Sink's character doesn't show up till halfway through the play. She's not in the entire 2 hours of the show. She appears, I think, just before intermission or anyway, she appears in the back 2/3 of the show. She's not a from the top of the curtain to the end of the curtain character. She appears later on. You're waiting for her to appear in the show. But I guarantee you there is a price difference because she's the marketable name. It's Sadie Sink and John Proctor is the Villain. Yeah. Like, that is her name on the poster.
And it doesn't matter that she's done theater before. It's the mass media property of Stranger Things and the Taylor Swift music video. That's what makes people excited to see her mass media celebrity megastar on stage.
But the point is that back in the day, if you were to come back and do theater, you were expected to take a pay cut because you were doing it for the love of the art. You're not doing it for the money to come and do theater.
Yes, we all know there's no money in theater.
That's right. It's a starving man's business. An actor. Have you ever eaten with one? But it's one of those things where it's like, I guarantee you, part of the reason why the ticket prices were priced the way they were for Othello, because you're not paying royalties for the play. Shakespeare's long dead and gone in its public domain property, and I can't tell you who the director was. So
that's a good point. I don't know that either, and I've been following this kind of closely, and I couldn't tell you who directed it.
So I guarantee you probably didn't get paid as much as Denzel and Jake Gyllenhaal, but I guarantee you there's a large part of that budget of their finances that go to just paying for them to appear. Because I guarantee if those two left, and you had Andre Sills and some other white actor playing Iago, give me a name of anybody on Broadway right now who came in and took over the role.
White guy on Broadway, I can't name any.
Right? But it's one of those things where it's like, I guarantee you, these two are eating up a big bunch of the budget. Weekly budget
for
goes
sure.
toward paying for them to be there. And it's a bad precedent. To the fact right now Hugh Jackman's coming out to do an off-Broadway show and say, I'm going to do affordable ticket price, even though his Music Man he did with Sutton Foster, stupid prices for those tickets.
Yes. And like, and I think the Hugh Jackman counterexample is interesting.
But the fact that's now a story, that it's a counterexample. And it's just like how musicals now market the fact that they have the biggest orchestra on Broadway. When like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, everybody had the same size orchestra. It wasn't hard for musicians to find a job on Broadway because every show needed at least 4 violinists, 2 wind players, at least 3 blast players, a few percussionists, somebody on piano. Like, it was easy to find. But the fact now that, the latest Gypsy Revival is marketed as, we're going back to the original Broadway score, the way that Sondheim and Jules Stein intended it to be heard, like the fact that now that's a marketing gimmick because it's more expensive to have a full orchestra. It's like, the precedent's being set thanks to Mel Brooks that the big celebrity has to be paid the big bucks because that's the way we're going to get them to come back and do a show on Broadway. And like back in the day, it was, Brian Dennehy is coming back to Broadway to do Death of a Salesman, not because he wants the money for it. No, he wants to do it for, the love of the art. Anyway, a lot of things I forgot you there.
Okay, so thank you for that whole history of that. So this is the thing that I think is kind of just interesting about this whole ticket price conversation, is because presumably Denzel Washington and Jake Gyllenhaal go to the theater because they love the art of theater. And they miss it.
Red carpets and things like that all the time. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal was in Sunday in the Park with George. Yeah. Like, he did the revival production.
And these are guys who can get big contracts to do movies.
Yeah.
So if they're going to do theater, it's because they want to be there. It is for the love of the art. Denzel could make an Othello movie if he wants to. So, and these guys have enough money, I would say. I don't know how much money they have, and every so often you hear about a celebrity like Leonard Cohen who loses all their money because they were swindled by some sort of fraudulent accountant. And if that's what's happening with these two guys, then I rescind this comment. But I would guess that Gladiator 2 paid a lot of money to Denzel Washington. I don't think he's struggling for funds right now. No. And that's why he needs these big ticket prices.
Yeah.
And
the thing is, like, it's not even. And once again, I'm not going full communist where everybody's got to be paid the same rate. Like, they are the bigger name. They're the bigger name. Ergo, and they're the stars. Ergo, there is a pricing structure where ensemble member gets paid one price, your leads get paid a different price. But to be paid so astronomically, like, I guarantee you, the actress who plays Desdemona, who once again don't know who she is.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
A lovely person. I guarantee you, she is not being paid the same salary as Jake Gyllenhaal and Denzel Washington.
And like, if you're just like deciding this calculus on the proportionality of who has more lines, who's in the show more, spends more time on stage, or like when somebody plays like Sadie Sink, for example, plays a smaller role than other characters.
Yeah. It's not even a smaller role. It's just that she doesn't have, like, I haven't seen the play, I haven't read the play, but from what I read of the early reviews, they said her character does not show up until like an hour into the show. Like, it's not like she is there at the top of the show, like 20 minutes in. Like, you gotta wait a bit for her character to show up because she's a transfer student into this classroom. So, like, she shows up a bit later. You're making the audience wait for her to show up on stage.
Yeah, and like, I think so. If she is in less of the show than any one of her cast members, which is probably the case, then, and if she's getting paid more than that, then that means what they are paying for is the celebrity draw that she brings, more so than the work she is putting into it. And that's not to diminish the work she's putting into it.
No, because she puts in a lot of work, and everybody who's seen it has said she is terrific. I mean, she's a Tony-nominated performer in this, and I guarantee you she earned every accolade because she put in the work and the effort, and,
but if somebody
is great to work with.
But if a seasoned professional Broadway actor who is in the same cast as her, on stage more than her, is getting paid less than her, that is because that person is considered less of a celebrity. That it is less.
They're not the draw of the show.
It is less worth their time to be doing theater like this than it is Sadie Sink's time, because she could be doing a big movie instead. And I think the stage manager, for example, how much do you think the stage manager who was working the whole time calling the freaking show, how much do you think they get paid to call the show Othello? Probably a lot less than Denzel. And I would argue they're on stage more, off stage, obviously, but they are on working for more of that runtime than somebody who gets breaks in the scenes they're not in. Like, and that's, and I'm not trying to be like very granular and meticulous of like who works the most and therefore they should get paid. There's a lot of intangible factors, and celebrity is one of those. But we are essentially putting monetary value on what celebrity is worth. I think of someone like Willem Dafoe, who also came up in the theater and now we consider to be a big movie star. But I'm not certain if this is true, but it's the stories that you always hear. So apologies if I'm spreading propaganda here. But apparently he took a lot of his big film roles, like Spider-Man, for example, which at the time comic book movies did not have a lot of cultural cachet. Like that was a big risk for a respected stage actor to take on a role like that. And nobody would expected that would be such a big hit. Well, maybe because Tim Burton's Batman set an interesting precedent.
I was about to say, Jack Nicholson did a very good job getting a back end deal on Batman.
Things were changing, and I don't know so much about Jack Nicholson's like things. I know more about Willem Dafoe in this case, so I don't want to use Jack Nicholson as an example in this. But Willem Dafoe, as I understand it, took that role so that he could keep financing the Wooster Group, an experimental New York theater company that he was heavily involved in. And that, I think, you wouldn't then see Willem Dafoe asking for big bucks to do a Wooster Group show, because he used the big bucks that he got from doing the superhero movie so that he could keep making the grungy experimental theater that he thought was interesting.
Well, it's like in Hollywood, right? Like all the actors do the one film for me, one film for the studio. And oftentimes they will take a pay cut to do the smaller indie movie that they're hoping will probably go more into the film circuit award thing versus, them like Jake Gyllenhaal doing Marvel. Like Jake Gyllenhaal signs up to do Mysterio because he wants to leave something for his kids and because it's a good payday. And then, he goes and often does Nightcrawler because that's a more of an indie, dark, character-driven piece that he can really sink his teeth into a role. Yeah, and I guarantee you, his pay difference between Mysterio and Spider-Man,
the one bankrolled by Disney in their mega franchise, is going to pay more than the artsy detective movie. But and like I think so. My kind of question, like to think of someone like Willem Dafoe or someone like Hugh Jackman, who makes a big news story out of, he's currently doing the Hannah Moscovich play, Sexual Misconduct of the Middle Class. So yay, Canada, shout out there. But he's, it becomes a news story that a celebrity is going to be in an affordable show that people could see, because Othello, as good as it might be, and I don't know anything beyond, like, I've read reviews of it, but like it may or may not be excellent quality, but we're dealing with some very interesting kind of economics where we're justifying this ticket price because that's what they are determining people are willing to pay for it. And I think, I don't know, like isn't the value of being a celebrity, going back to theater because you love theater, isn't like the fact that these guys don't need the money? Couldn't this be a good justification for charging less? That
absolutely, I completely agree. Once again, the whole joy of theater is you get to be in the room where it happens. It's a tangible art form where you get to be in a shared room with a shared experience with a living person right in front of you. And listen, I think there needs to be a proper pay system where, like, theater people can afford the venue, afford to pay actors a living wage. It's a very complicated. Once again, I'm not a producer. I'm not an accountant. There's a lot of money figuring out who gets paid what in order to balance it all out. But when you're going to bring in a celebrity, I think there should be a communal understanding between the A-list mega celebrities who are like Liev Schreiber's coming to do this show with Hugh Jackman. He just did Doubt on Broadway. I don't know what he gets paid, but it's one of those things where, where it's like, I would hope that Hugh Jackman went to him and said, "Hey, Liev, we got to, take a pay cut together, you and me, buddy, because that's the way where the theater company can afford to produce this production." Like, I guarantee you, if Denzel and Jake Gyllenhaal took a pay cut and said, "Hey, you know what? Don't pay me my star salary. maybe some back end deal on the box office after the backers or whatever. Like, I'll take a cut here because I really want to do Othello on stage. And that's where, or you know what? I'll take a pay cut so you can pay the other actors who I'm going to be working with a better wage. Because the rising tide raises all ships, People are going to come see me, but hey, you know what? A lot of good actors are going to get a good jump off point for their careers from this.
And even if,
but like, once again, like there should be like a thing, okay, mega star kind of like group agreement where it's like, hey, if we're going to go do Broadway, we're all going to get paid within this price bracket, because it's like that group think tank where it's like, hey, it doesn't matter if I'm Meryl Streep or I'm Liev Schreiber or I'm Jake Gyllenhaal or Denzel or Lawrence Fishburne, whoever it's going to be that you're going to bring to Broadway, there should be some type of communal agreement of, and we've lost that. We've lost that ability to be like, we're doing theater for the art of being in the room, to work on the text, to work on the craft, and it's meant to be so people, our audiences who have seen us on the big screen, can come sit in the room and watch us do our craft and actually get to experience being in the same air as us.
Mm-hmm. And I would assume, again, more about this kind of thing than I do, when you play, if you're a good theater artist who gets a lead role in a Broadway play, you make above a living wage doing that, yes?
Once again, depends on who you are. Like,
let's say it's a show
Audra McDonald.
Okay, I'm not talking about someone who is like Audra McDonald or Patti LuPone level celebrity, because those are people who kind of the rare examples where they have transcended theater celebrity.
Sure, okay, fine. Ramin Karimloo, Canadian guy, done Broadway, done the West End. I guarantee you he is paid, yes, a living wage, like above living wage, where he gets to be very comfortable in his salary. to work, to do 8 shows a week.
He doesn't still have a serving job while he's doing that.
No, exactly. He's not picking up.
Most Toronto actors need a serving job, even when they're in that. So, like, that's a
ensemble swing actors, unless you're Charlie D'Amelio, taking on a day job of some kind, whether working at a gym, being a yoga instructor by day, theater artist by night, type thing.
Yes. So I could understand the figuring out what the reasonable ticket price is where everybody could get paid the living wage they need to do this full time. And if I am a big celebrity, like say Denzel Washington, you could take the same rate that
absolutely, and that's what I mean. Like, if Denzel's going to be a lead in a play, he should get the regular leading man salary for a Broadway production, not the megastar salary that I'm sure he got paid to star in Othello.
Yeah. Like the implications, I think, of, and I don't know if demanding is the right word, because I don't know what he demanded or what his agent demanded, but to say that, like, I'm the big star here, therefore I need to make more money than every single one of you to justify me being here. What is the implication of that? Like, ethically, philosophically, I am more important than you. And there's interesting ways that we can kind of think about how one justifies a position like that. As in, I am more important because me being here will sell tickets. Therefore, I am of greater value to this project. And therefore, I deserve to be compensated proportionate to the value I bring. That's an argument to be made.
Well, it's a very slippery slope, but I can see the merits of that, because we have revived Gypsy how many times? Broadway? Many times. And many more will come.
Yes.
Because it is a role that many women want to play. But Audra McDonald being in the lead does bring a level of, okay, this is worth being there. Because, I mean, there's other great actors in that. I mean, Danny Burstein, who is playing Herbie, is a Tony-winning, solid day in, day out actor. He's done Law and Order. He's done the character parts in that. Jordan Woods, I believe is her name, who is playing Louise, but she did, she's done several other Broadway productions. Like she is a stalwart, tried and true supporting leading actress of Broadway. Like, she just did The Notebook on Broadway. That was her last big credit that she did, I believe.
And Louise is arguably the second star of the show.
Absolutely, she is. The show's named after her character.
I know, which is interesting. Anyway, we're not getting into a whole Gypsy side tangent.
But the point being is, why Scott and I on my other podcast before the Downbeat, we oftentimes go, because we always have the last question, which you participated in now, which is, does this show still have a place today? Should it be revived? why are we reviving Othello again? Because it's a vanity project or a passion project, we should say. Be nice to them. A passion project for Denzel Washington to do. Audra McDonald, who I love dearly, don't get me wrong. Audra, you are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But I guarantee you there's a bit of passion in that she wanted to play Mama Rose, and she was at the right age at the right time. We hadn't had a revival since Patti LuPone in 2008, I believe.
Yeah. Which he now must apologize for.
We're not going to get into that.
That's a whole separate topic.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
It's just funny.
And she did make an apology.
I know. Yes, I just read the articles about it. I saw.
Yes, but anyway, point being is that like it'd be now over a decade since Gypsy had been revived. Audra's at the right age for it. It was a prime perfect season or perfect storm of a season to have her come and do Mama Rose, and it was marketed as Audra McDonald and Gypsy, and then everybody else got announced afterwards. And now, mind you, social media did a good job of teasing out who it was going to be. Everybody got their own social media post. It wasn't just like a, casting announcement blurb in like in like the Times where it said, "Yeah, these are the rest of the cast. Everybody who else is joining Audra." It's like Danny got announced as her, but he got a day. And the actresses who are playing Louise and June got a day. Like everybody kind of had their moment to shine on social media when they were announcing the cast, which was beautiful. It was a very well done, nice bit of marketing, good way to kind of announce the other stars like Broadway who are going to be joining Audra McDonald in Gypsy. And the fact that it's her name above the musical.
And it is, we could even say, a big deal for each of them to be in a show with Audra McDonald, and that'll go well for their careers too.
Absolutely.
So she's bringing value to their careers as well. Yes. But to go back to my kind of question about how are we valuing what someone deserves to be paid and why someone deserves to be paid so much more, the sort of slightly defensible argument is the one that I've already made of it's the value they bring to the production.
Absolutely. Well, once again, think about it this way. We're like, would John Proctor as the villain be as, we would all, I want to see it because I'm fascinated by the play, but I guarantee you there's a lot of audiences who, never thought about that play, never really considered it until they went, oh, Stranger Things, Sadie Sink is in it. Ergo, I should go see it. Now, I'm sure everybody in the U.S., because I think it's bigger down in the U.S. than it is up here in school, but everybody, I think that's part of the U.S. curriculum.
Yeah, they all read the Crucible in school. Yeah.
Yeah, they read the Crucible. So there is some tangible thing there, but unless you had somebody like Sadie Sink there to be an anchor point for that new Broadway production, would that play be as big nationally as it is known now? Like, I'm sure it would still be Tony nominated. I'm sure somebody in the cast would have been nominated for a Tony Award for their performance in it. But because you have this anchor point of Sadie Sink, is probably getting a higher level of attention.
I'm sure, and I agree that's probably the case. But I
should say marketability of having a bigger name does help a show. And does help promote shows that maybe are newer that would not get the odds that they probably would get. Because we know it is hard to sell a new show that is not a film property or a well-known like commercial property or like a famous book series like Harry Potter, that it's like, this is a new piece, very hard to get new pieces produced on Broadway without, having some type of backing somewhere that somebody either is really passionate about the project or there is some big name attached. And that goes back to, back in the day, like many musicals I've talked about before the Downbeat, it all stems from, hey, Ethel Merman wants to do a musical about Gypsy. Ergo, she's the name, she's the star, and that's how we got her to sign on and back the project. Very rarely do you get a situation like West Side Story, where it's a whole bunch of no-name people in 1957, New York, get together to do a musical. Now, Jerome Robbins and Arthur Lawrence were bigger names, but it wasn't like what we today, where like, Robert Lepage gets like that same level of Jerome Robbins caliber of direction. Anyway, I threw out more at you. Fire back.
Yeah. I guess, trying to think. I guess to go back to my thought about just how are we valuing and justifying these salaries and the proportionate ticket prices that come with them. Because, if I'm Denzel Washington and I bring so much value and I'm a big celebrity and I could be making a movie, but I'm here instead, therefore I'm worth more than you are, is the argument that is being made. Or if Sadie Sink or even Jake Gyllenhaal, any of them, I kind of just think that's shitty. for lack of a better word. And it, to me, doesn't.
Well, once again, if they were taking the pay cut.
Yeah, as I'm basically arguing that I think they should.
I agree they should.
And,
I agree. And now maybe they are. Maybe they are, and we just don't know it, and the producers are just being greedy buggers who are wanting to capitalize off Denzel and Jake Gyllenhaal. And Jake Gyllenhaal and Denzel are like, hey, don't fire shots at me, man. Like, I took the pay cut to be on this Broadway stage.
I'm sure he would have done more press conferences about that if that was the case. Like, I think that would be well publicized, but maybe the producers don't want it because then they couldn't use him being there to justify the ticket prices. But yeah, I think like that is celebrities should be willing to take that pay cut. Maybe some aren't, because they're part of the cast like everyone else. They're going into work. They are compromising the time that could have been spent doing movies. They have enough money, most of them. And I think that is a savings that should be passed on to the ticket purchaser. And that is what Hugh Jackman is essentially doing in the example, that counter example there, is that, you shouldn't have to pay this much to be in the presence of the celebrity.
Yeah.
And to insist that you do, I think there's like an interesting argument about celebrity culture, about how it preserves the aura of the celebrity that you must.
Well, yeah, it does really, because if you think about it, very rarely would Denzel go out on tour in a touring production of Othello around North America. Sometimes they do. Like, once again, Elizabeth McGovern's coming to Mirvish to do her play. You know, very rarely does the celebrity go out on tour. They still keep it within that Broadway, West End, sit down, tight spot,
Yeah, but I guess my kind of thought here is that, yes, how much you have to pay preserves that aura of celebrity, but it also makes celebrity inaccessible and theater inaccessible. And if the celebrities are arguing that, I want to do theater because there's nothing like theater, there's a magic to it and the liveness, and we appreciate it, and it's worth taking time away from film to do it, then they're kind of reifying the idea that theater is a luxurious good, that it is something that you must pay more for, much more than the price of a movie ticket, obviously, but even more than a regular theater ticket. And they're making it more and more inaccessible for people to see theater. And it's kind of doing something interesting to the high culture, low culture divide here, because it's framing in a way. Well, the interesting thing that's happening here is that in this dichotomy that may or may not be as rigid as I'm framing it here, but theater is seen as high culture, film is seen as lower culture in a way. And yet by being mass culture, film rather, becomes culture in a way that theater does not. Theater exists for a niche audience who might have then a cultivated sense of personalized celebrities from the people they see on there. But the film celebrities come back to theater to bring that mass culture mediated celebrity back into this realm that's supposedly higher culture, but I'm trying to think where I have the kernel of a thought here. Do you kind of suss out where I'm going with this?
Well, it sounds like, once again, you're saying, audiences, by charging the prices they charge, to get a seat in the room where it happens becomes much harder, ergo keeping that exclusivity, which then cuts off theater from what it's always should have been, which is, it's the communal space where people can come in and everybody can experience and enjoy it. Film is still that, but it's not that same level of intimacy that, theater is.
Yeah.
Like, I can go to enjoy a Tom Cruise movie and, have it there, really enjoy seeing the new Mission Impossible. Everybody in the theater is reacting the same way I am. We have that synergy about us in the room, watching that submarine action sequence. It's really cool. But to be in the room where you're watching the celebrity perform and everybody gets to be in that same space and we all get to, once again, I took my dad to see Danny DeVito for one night only in Toronto, do a live, so it's the live orchestra doing Matilda. And Danny DeVito was coming because he was going to recreate his role as the narrator. And then I paid extra money not going to say how much, because it was a great gift from my dad. I know he's listening, so Dad, don't even think about it. I'm going to reveal how much. But
Thanks for listening.
I paid extra. Thank you. But I, paid extra so we could do the VIP experience where we got to stay afterwards as a small group. There were 75 of us. Got to stay back afterwards. We did a talk back with Danny DeVito as well as David Newman, the composer and conductor of the night. And then afterwards, we all got our picture taken with him. I mean, it's on the lock screen on my phone. Hold on, I can show you. Like Mr. Danny DeVito, my dad, and I. Nice. And David Newman is there too. He wasn't sure. He just got cut off because
he was holding the camera.
No. Actually, he's next to me. But it's just when you're trying to fit every. So for sure of who can fit on my lock screen. Danny DeVito won.
Yeah.
But once again, people paid more money for that live orchestra experience because Danny DeVito came and did it. My dad said I wouldn't really care to go see Matilda. Once again, David Newman is a Oscar nominated. I think maybe Oscar. I don't know. But either way, he is a well-touted film composer. Like you look at his filmography, he's done a shit ton of films that you wouldn't know. But people weren't asking him a ton of questions at the Q&A. They all mainly went to Danny DeVito.
Mm-hmm.
And they paid more because Danny DeVito was doing it.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, the TSO was able to perform that night. And that was a concert that the TSO was paid for.
Yes. I hope so.
Well,
yeah.
They were.
Yeah.
So, they got a gig because of it. So, once again, it's that weird thing. Now, I don't know how much Danny DeVito got paid to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a well-funded man of his 80s. Like, he has done his time. He does well. He's got his grandkids. I'm sure he's got things set up. He's a very nice man. I can attest to that now. I've met him. He's a lovely man.
Nice.
He's not a prick. But, that being said, that was the reason why a lot of people came out that night.
I imagine that's the reason most people came out. Yeah.
It's a cute movie, but it's not one of the great film scores where it's like, going to see Lord of the Rings with the live orchestra. Like, that is a cool experience that warrants you wanting to go pay that ticket price of, $120 or whatever that ticket cost is that I paid to go see with Andrew every January. Because with the live orchestra, the choir, it looks cool, it sounds epic, it's worth it. Matilda is not that.
Yeah, the music is an integral part. The music is one of the stars of Lord of the Rings in the way that I wouldn't say it is in Matilda.
Yes. Yeah.
But Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
Is
but
Danny
DeVito was there. And, it's that. So that's kind of, I don't know if that helped your kernel at all.
I guess I think I lost whatever that kernel was going towards, but.
Well, so be it.
This is the nature of this editorial format. Yeah, I guess one last thought that I want to maybe do before we wrap this up, unless you have other things you want to get to.
No. I mean, I think I've said most of my history of ticket prices and, all that fun stuff there.
Well, I think what I want to kind of maybe get us back to, this is sort of away from the ticket price conversation, but back to where we started of what does celebrity look like in Canadian theater and what should Canadian theater do to engage with its own sense of celebrity, I guess, or how celebrity works here. Is the answer, the lesson from something like Othello, is that we should be looking to get more stars, whether they're willing to take a pay cut as you expect that maybe they should, or should we be trying to get the funds to get a mega celebrity to do these kinds of shows? Like, I think Paul Gross is an interesting example of somebody in Canadian theater who is...
We just saw him in Stratford as King Lear.
Yeah, and then after that he did Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf at Can Stage with his wife, Martha Burns, who's also a Stratford veteran and has also done plenty of Toronto theater. But so someone like Paul Gross is an interesting example of a Canadian celebrity.
Yes.
Because I think most people, non-theater people, but most people probably know him from Due South and Men with Brooms and Passchendaele.
Yeah.
And
Slings and Arrows, did he do that one?
He did, but I'm getting to that because that's a very interesting case. But Slings and Arrows isn't a show that any non-theater people care about, is why I don't list it in like Due South and Men with Brooms and Passchendaele. Those are like the well-regarded Canadian films and television shows that someone is likely to recognize him from. And as a result, he is, I would say, a very Canadian example of a celebrity. I don't think most Americans would recognize him. And I think he probably has a very easy time walking the streets in American cities without getting recognized. But in Canada, people look at him like, oh, yeah, I know you. Yeah. Even if they're not necessarily even certain where they know him from. But I think he has like that. Slings and Arrows is kind of an interesting example because I think, and I could be wrong about this, and preemptive apology if I am, but I think Slings and Arrows tricked people into thinking of Paul Gross as more of a theater celebrity than he is. Because I'm sure he got his start in theater, and apologies that I didn't necessarily research his biography extensively before making this claim. But he went an awful lot of years not doing any theater. But he does...
Yeah, like when he did Lear, it was a big comeback for him to come back to Stratford and do King Lear. I remember the marketing for that.
Yeah, but he does a show like Slings and Arrows where he's basically the savior of the Not Stratford Festival, the New Burbage Festival, who in that show, he's making a bit of a comeback that he was like the star who played Hamlet and then comes back to become the artistic director to help the struggling festival reclaim its artistic integrity. That it's theater people, and particularly like Toronto theater people and Stratford theater people who frequent theater in those two cities, we hold Paul Gross in our heads of, yes, he's Jeffrey from Slings and Arrows. Mm-hmm. He was born to return to the stage, and that's like in a way that like I think gives him a bigger sense of that theater celebrity, because most of the cachet comes from, well, his film career, and like Slings and Arrows is part of his TV, like mass media career in this way. And I think they did get a lot of people to come see Lear and then Virginia Woolf because he was in it. And it's interesting the way that he kind of operates in this space where, however exaggerated it might be, he is known as a theater celebrity because he was in a TV show about being a theater celebrity. But a TV show that, you know, so many of the people we recognize from Stratford had parts in that show. And like, because they were making a show about Stratford essentially. And they cast a lot of people from Stratford, and Soulpepper, which was still kind of new at the time, had broken off from Stratford. But yeah, like tons of people who we recognize in Toronto theater. You watch Slings and Arrows and you're like, hey, Oliver Dennis is in this or whatever. But and there's something fun about that too, theater people watching that show. And it's a rare kind of inversion of that, where the people who I consider to be personal celebrities for me get their moment in the spotlight there. But then Paul Gross comes back to theater, and he isn't operating within that matrix of theater celebrity, personal celebrity. He's the megastar who brings audiences to the theater to see him. And I think we can see something similar with the Hobbits and even Saul Rubinek, for example. And I guess I don't want to be as simple as to say that what Canadian theater should learn from something like Othello is that get yourself a big star and that'll bring the audiences, and pay that star whatever they want and charge a proportioned ticket price for this. Because more than anything, I don't know if this is really cultivating a love for the theater. It's reaffirming the love of the film that makes these people famous, and the film culture in that way. That I don't think the people who are paying $800 for a ticket to see Denzel and Othello, I don't think a lot of them are necessarily like, oh, now I love the theater because I saw a play I really liked. Mm-hmm. They're like, I saw a film actor I really liked and I got to be in the room with him right now, and it's exciting for me. And I want to go back to something you said here. Or sorry, do you have any thought about what I've said here so far before I go back to something else you said?
No. I mean, like, you and I've already talked about how like we need to do a better job in Canadian theater promoting our celebrities, because we do have them, like Tom McCannis. Like, why on a poster for, what was the one, once again, I'm so sorry, the one that Shauna McKenna did with him in Toronto?
The things I know to be true.
Yeah. Like, why was that not, come see Tom McCannis from The Room, or Room, or not,
yeah, not The Room.
Yeah, Room, like, come see Tom McInnes from Room in this Mervish play. Like,
well, because
why not market it that way? Like, that is an easy marketing tool. Now, maybe, you do pay Tom McInnes a bit more because he is the lead.
But I'm sure he and Shauna McKenna as the leads just in general got more, not because he's been in movies.
Yeah. Exactly. But it's like, why not? Like, it's a simple tweak of the marketing because 8.5 minutes.
4 minutes, 12 seconds is what it's called.
Sorry, 4 minutes,
it's okay, just to back up to you having...
Or even 4 minutes, 12 seconds. You usually could have marketed it more, because Megan Fellows was the lead of that show. Like, Jaden was great. The entire cast of that show was terrific. They did a great job. But she is the name of that production. Like,
but
she was the name.
Also an interesting kind of celebrity, because the thing most people know her from is something she did as a child. Like,
but people know her now for a whole bunch of other things. Like, she did Rain on the CW. Like she's done a whole bunch of other things that I do know her for. Okay. Like, she as an adult. So, but it's like,
because that's a personal celebrity. I don't think she is a megastar.
Well, once again, she's not a megastar because we haven't used that level of levels in marketing where it's like, hey, come see Megan Fellows from CW's Rain and Anna Green Gables. Like, that should have been plastered, big Facebook ads. That should have been it. Like, have Megan with the phone looking at the video, and it's like, what is she watching on the video?
Yeah,
type thing there.
So is something like that. So is the solution poster design?
Poster design, but also capitalizing on who you have in the cast. Like there are many younger, like, you usually, if Emilio is lucky enough at Stratford to do Henry V, which I predicted on record, saying we predicted some point, Emilio, you'll end up being Henry V in the Stratford production. But being like, hey, come see Emilio, who is a Dora nominated performer of these productions in, this, where you start getting that cross pollination. Like, that's where that started. Like, Patti LuPone grew her levels of nuance because, like, long before she got known for doing film, she starred in Evita. Then she went off and did Les Mis, and she went off and did Anything Goes. Like she was a continual working, like, she was Tony winner Patti LuPone from Evita. Like, Broadway does a very good job of harkening back. Like, Danny Burstein won his Tony in Moulin Rouge. People now know him as Danny Burstein Tony winner from Moulin Rouge. We have Dora Awards here. They are a big deal to win a Dora Award. You have earned that right to be a Dora winner. That should be plastered on there. Shauna McKenna, Dora Award winner for these productions. Like, we need to do a better job as marketing people. You, like, capitalize on our celebrity we have here. We do have, and yes, there's a personal versus the megastar. I get it. But we can easily start to grow a bit more from that personal level of, hey, you've seen them in Murdoch Mysteries. You've seen Lisa Horner do these different things. You can easily market that a bit more and actually highlight the career, because you read the bio and go, oh, yeah, wow. Like, yeah. The fact that we were like, wait, does Tom McInnes have room in his bio? It's like, yes, he does. But it's like, that's a big Oscar-winning movie. That should not be hidden in the bio you read in the program. That should be on your poster as a marketing person. That should be right there, top and center. Come see Tom McInnes, star of Robert Lepage's Macbeth, and you would know him because you saw the Oscar-winning movie Room. Now, mind you, he's not the lead in the movie, but that's semantics. He's still starred in an Oscar-winning movie. But I think, as a local regional theater company, you can easily capitalize on that and tout that you got this guy as the lead of your play.
I think what I'm hearing from this that's actually kind of interesting. I don't think it's from lack of thinking of it is why they don't do this. Maybe I'm giving too much credit. But I think Tom McInnes and Lucy Peacock on the poster of Macbeth, and that being the big draw, but not having you've seen him in Oscar-winning Brie Larson movie, is because maybe Stratford is more interested in cultivating its own highly localized version of personal celebrity.
Yes, Stratford is unique in that way where they're able to cultivate a roster of actors that we as audiences know who they are. But take Tom McInnes going to Mervish, doing that Things We Know to Be True with Shauna McKenna. Well, but why wasn't Mervish marketing it that way?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people.
But that's a new play. Nobody really knew the play. It got word of mouth because it was so good that it started selling at runs, and like my uncle got tickets and said, "We got to go see this," because I heard nothing but good things.
And I think
not because Tom McCannis was in it.
Well, I think that's where we might differ in this opinion, because I think a lot of people who don't usually see Toronto theater or a lot of Toronto theater, but go to Stratford every summer, maybe did go see that show because two Stratford veterans were in it. It's certainly like I don't see everything. Typically, I don't see everything that's in the Off Mirvish season, but I did make a point of seeing that because of them, who I like from Stratford. And I recognize that they're not mega stars, but they are personal celebrities I care about. Just like I got excited when he showed up in Room, not because, yay, movie star, you are in a movie. You're a theater star who I consider a celebrity in my personal understanding of who do I get excited to see.
Yes.
And that is the kind of interesting thing that I think Stratford has done. And Toronto theater, I think, has done a version of this too. Dan Musso, for example, Dora winning actor from Prodigal. We interviewed him here on the Cup. Jill interviewed him on the Cup. Most of our videos don't get a lot of comments on YouTube, but there are 3 comments on that video where people say, "Hey, it's Webweaver. It's Webweaver. Look, Webweaver. R.I.P. Webweaver." And I had no idea when I saw these what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Dan Musso is a star to me, and super nice guy, but who doesn't have like that ascension of celebrity. But like I go to see plays because he's in it, because he is amazing. I had to Google what is Webweaver Dan Musso. I typed into Google, and he had a small part on the TV show The Boys. I have never seen The Boys, but people who like The Boys, clearly searching for who's the guy who played Webweaver. Oh, there's like an hour-long interview with him on YouTube in which he doesn't talk about The Boys at all because this was filmed before, but talks about his robust Toronto theater career. That's interesting to me, that the small part he played in, like not unsubstantial part, but I think he's like only in like 2 or 3 episodes and dies very instantly. R.I.P. Webweaver. But that small part got people interested in, I will watch this thing in which he talks about his Toronto stage career. He's going to be in, I think, Summer and Smoke at Crows next season. And what you're proposing is they should put on the poster Webweaver from The Boys stars in Summer and Smoke.
Yes, because that brings in not just us as the, we are already on the hook. We are the theater people who know who Shauna McKenna, know who Lucy Peacock are. We are like, you got us. Like, we are there. Like the minute they announced Roberto LaPage was doing Mackers with Lucy and Tom, I was like, it could be horrible, could be great. Oh no, I'm seeing it in July.
It's just okay, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. That's Ryan's opinion.
You can read my review.
But that was one of the first tickets I bought when those tickets went on sale, because that was when we're like, I got to see this production. Now, to the general audience member who, because you and I have talked about this many times, and we've talked about this in Canadian theater in particular, because it is a growing trend and concern. We have the wonderful white-haired donor class of Toronto theater that have kept Toronto theater in Stratford and regional theater provinces like Stratford and Shaw alive through their sponsorships of season subscriptions. But that group is dying off. And Broadway saw the same thing happen after the 40s and 50s into the 60s. And that's why we have the kind of the mini crash of the 70s, when Broadway really fell on hard times because they had lost that audience base. The only way you sustain theaters is by trying to bring as many people in as possible, which means utilizing every tool in your toolbox to do that. So that means you got to market that, like, hey, on these performances, Martina, who as the singer from the Toronto Maple Leafs, as well as from Wyatt Earp, CBC's and Paramount Plus's Skymen, will be playing the role of Nala because she's the understudy. Market the shit out of that. She was on her social media. I remember her announcing on her social media, hey, on these dates, I'm going to be performing as Nala. Now did Mirvish repost those stories, even though she tagged them? They did not. But they should have. Because that is good marketing, and that builds star and celebrity. and recognizable, and it builds audiences that allows people to come in and go, hey, I gotta see that because I love my dad goes, I didn't know she was in Lion King. I had no desire to see Lion King, but hey, I thought she's a great singer, and I enjoyed her singing during the opening of the Maple Leaf Games. So when I was like, maybe I would go see Lion King if she was playing Nala that night. Once again,
but not if they were exorbitantly expensive tickets, which is why once you have someone with a fan following of their own come into the theater and bring that audience with them, you shouldn't alienate them by cashing in on that.
And once again, that's what gets us back to the original pricing conversation of if you are a celebrity, a megastar celebrity who is coming in like a Denzel, like a Meryl Streep, like a Patti LuPone, who is coming in to be the Sadie Sink, to be the star of that show, there needs to be some type of formal, informal celebrity truce across the board that just says, hey, guys, we're coming to do theater. We're not coming to do the next Hollywood movie. Ergo, our salary should be somewhere like this.
Yes.
To make it affordable for people to come in and see us and make it accessible so audiences can enjoy being in the room with us because we're doing a passion project of our own. We're not doing this because we need the money. We're doing it because this is a passion project that we want to do. Now, in Canada, as we said, that's a whole different story. They need to do a better job marketing and utilizing the tools they have in their toolbox to market that show.
And what I would like to see, because if you just have like the guy who you saw in The Boys as Webweaver is in a Tennessee Williams plays at Crow's Theater, then I wonder what is the step from cultivating the TV audience and turning them into a theater audience, because I don't think unless someone
you're opening the opportunity. Well, once again, it's like Sadie Sink, right? Like, how many young people are going to see John Proctor's The Villain because they are Stranger Things fans?
Probably
a lot. Now, I guarantee you, 80% of them will probably see that one Broadway show with their parents and their partner, whoever they go with. And that'll be the one Broadway show they see, and that they're happy, dory, doodle dandy. They got to see their celebrity. But there's a 20% of that audience who may go,
you're making up these percentages,
I'm making up
right?
these statistics.
Just checking.
Once again,
there's no hard data.
I'm not saying there's no there's no way to have hard data on this. But the point is that 80% of them probably will see one Broadway show because of that celebrity and never will see another Broadway show again. But there is a marginal 20% chance that 20% of that group goes, you know what? I've never seen a Broadway show. I went to see this. I like this. I want to go see more, or I want to go support, the national touring company that is coming to my area because I now like theater. I enjoy what it gave me to be in the room. And you're bringing in a whole new audience.
So with that in mind, what I would like to see is more instances. I'm not saying no to what you're proposing about using mass media properties and the celebrity cachet that comes from that to get people who otherwise wouldn't go to the theater to come to the theater. But I think what is worthwhile to the people who make most of their careers in theater, like the Stratford Company and people who do lots of shows in Toronto and whatnot, what I think we should be trying to cultivate just as much is letting them be celebrities for their work in theater, even if that's for a smaller audience. But I'm trying to think how to phrase this, but like the Stratford model, essentially, that people will see fans of Stratford will see a Stratford show because it has the Stratford actors they like in it.
Mm-hmm.
When fans of The Boys come to see Summer and Smoke, I would just as much like to see the next Dan Musso show advertised to that same audience. You saw him in Summer and Smoke, come see him again.
The nice thing, Ryan, with marketing nowadays, you can have so many ads running that you can easily have an ad that says The Boys, and then you also can run a Dan Musso star of these shows that you would have seen.
But I want the audience
back in the day where you had the budget and it was, hey, we got to go to the Toronto Star. We got one chance with one big one-pager print ad. Ergo, we got a very small choice of what we're going to do with our marketing. Nowadays, between many different ways of marketing a show, you can have multiple different ads running and marketing to different people, different targets.
Right. And like, I think, but where I'm going with this also is like, yes, have many different types of ads, but then once that audience sees him in theater, try to let up on cashing in on the mass media fame and emphasize the importance of this is a theater celebrity that you saw in this play you really liked. Because I think that more than anything is what theater needs to create a sense of not quite mega stardom, but sufficient stardom beyond the personal in its own medium with its own actors who prefer to work in that medium. If it's constantly trying to be like, we need somebody who's big on film and TV, and we need to emphasize how big they are on film and TV to say, please come to the theater, then theater is always subordinating itself in this way and will never create its own celebrity culture.
I mean, like, that's what I was talking about Patti LuPone, right?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't until like the 90s or late 80s when she did the NBC show. I forget. Anyway, it was like a family sitcom style show where she moved out to LA to do that show. Even Audra McDonald, like, she started off, like, she came out of Juilliard, classical trained singer, like, she did Carousel, won the Tony, did Ragtime, won the Tony. Like, it wasn't until later on in the late 90s, early 2000s when she started doing more film, television stuff. But even then, like, she was a big enough name, being a 3-time Tony winner, that, like, or 2-time Tony winner, that she could easily, at that time, have a good Broadway fan base of people who knew who she was. Didn't have to be, oh, you know, you recognize her from her episode on Law and Order, or, you know, starring in the Ryan Murphy TV production of Annie with Victor Garber and Kathy Bates. Like it didn't have to be that level. So, but yes, but that's, once again, Broadway does a better job at that.
Yeah, and Broadway is obviously a different beast, but if we're just thinking about what
big theater hubs of the world, Toronto is third. It's West End, Broadway, Toronto. Ergo, Toronto should be taking lessons from Broadway and the West End, utilizing the theater credits where you can in the marketing, just as much as you use the film credits, depending on who they are. Like, Danny Burstein is a Tony-winning actor who's known for Moulin Rouge and a whole bunch of other great Broadway productions. He has a great Broadway fan base. Like, when he was announced as Herbie and Gypsy, everybody was happy because he's a lovely. In fact, they just did a Tony Award promo for him, where it's like all these Broadway celebrities, Nathan Lane, a whole bunch of other actors and actresses who have worked with him or who have worked around him, have all come out saying, we love Danny. Like, we got to see him in this show, and we love him in that show. Like, it was a great little promo piece. It's like a 1-minute ad where it starts off initially, but it goes through the whole roster of named actors and people who I would recognize from the stage. But, you know, like, maybe they wouldn't have a big mass appeal. But it's like, hey, they're promoting that we all love Danny Burstein, who is a well-known stage actor in our community, and he deserves to win the Tony for best supporting supporting actor for Gypsy.
Well, we've been talking for a while. Any last thought, or should we wrap up?
I think we should wrap up because I can't think of much more to say at this point.
I'm sure there's more we could say, but I don't think we're coming to any conclusions. Hopefully, we have generated interesting food for thought that and in the comments, or just tell us that you also liked Webweaver. In the Boys. If any of those people have continued being fans of the Cup because they liked our interview with the guy from the Boys, then maybe we're doing something right, but I doubt that's the case.
That's fair. Wonderful. All right. Well, I mean, Ryan, on that lovely note, what do you say we do a quick check-in? Give us a classic Ryan Borochovitz send-off we all know and love?
Yeah, no need to find and follow me personally, but if you like me and my theater thoughts, many of them tend to live here on the Cup. That's at COH Theater on Facebook, Twitter, not calling it the other thing, and Instagram. We are Cup of Hemlock Theater on YouTube, where you might be watching this, Cup of Hemlock Theater podcast, and all the podcast places where you might be listening to this. If you like more of my theater thoughts, a lot of them are currently being published by Next Magazine. I'm covering the entire Stratford season over there, and a lot of stuff.
Going to do a lot of Fringe.
Oh yeah, Fringe too.
Fringe is coming.
It is. How about you, Mack? Where can people find and follow you and listen to your other Broadway-themed thoughts?
That's right. Follow me over at Before the Downbeat Musical podcast, where we're talking about musicals. We are in the midst of wrapping up our current season, which Ryan did appear in. And so, check that out there. And you also can follow me at Mackenzie on all social media platforms as well.
All right. Well, I was hosting this episode, so
yes,
everyone,
to sign off.
Hope you enjoyed this fascinating editorial conversation about celebrity and ticket prices and a whole bunch of other stuff. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you in the next episode. Cheers.
Cheers!